More on that arms deal with Iran. It was an admission that should have made the bells ring and the sirens to scream, but it did not. Declassified FBI documents showing tonight that former National Security aide Oliver North told the FBI 2 years ago that he was actually helping to raise private funds for the Contras from his job in the White House. At the time, that was against the law for government officials to send military aid to the rebels in Nicaragua. But the FBI, including the FBI Director William Webster, did nothing about North's admission. That fact came out at Senate confirmation hearings for Mr. Webster.
His confirmation hearings do suggest that the FBI, and to some extent Judge Webster himself, did not respond to clear warnings to stop Lieutenant Colonel North's improper, if not illegal, activities.
The FBI chief, Webster, said that he never learned about Ollie North's admission that he was aiding the Contras. Webster said that happened because of some trouble transmitting a teletype message 2 miles from one FBI office in Washington to another FBI office. The Senate Intelligence Committee evidently accepted that explanation, voting 15-0 in favor of confirming Webster as the new head of this nation's CIA. Former television evangelist Jim Bakker is denying tonight that he has any plans at all to wage any kind of a holy war to regain his lost religious empire and big salary. Bakker and his wife Tammy have been in seclusion at their Palm Springs, California home since the PTL scandal broke. They met reporters who have been waiting at the gate of their home to tell them they're on the road to spiritual recovery.
We just wanted to come and say hello to you today, and I know you've been standing out in this hot sun for a long time, and Tammy and I are alive. We may not be too well, but we're alive.
One thing I'd like to say, Jim. I often wondered if the gospel that we preached would work for us. And I'm glad to stand here today to say that the gospel that we preach really does work.
Without a miracle of God, we will never minister again. I have never been involved with wife swapping.
Never.
I'm not a homosexual.
Right.
And I've never been to a prostitute.
So those who are hurting and suffering today, hang in there. The sun will shine again.
And so we just want everyone to begin to love one another, and that the church world will love one another, that the people of God will not fight.
When asked about their future plans, the Bakkers told reporters they really do not have any plans at this point, but Jim Bakker says he is thinking about writing a book about his recent problems and troubles. Dana?
Still ahead tonight on Action News, we'll wrap up our exclusive report on one of the leaders of the hate movement in America, Robert Miles. Hundreds of people in Metro Detroit rally against communism tonight. And the Red Wings win tonight to take the playoffs back to Detroit. Those stories and more when Action News Update continues.
Sometime this year, a jury is going to be picked in Fort Smith, Arkansas, to hear Uncle Sam's case against 15 of the top leaders of the white separatist movement in America. The leaders of the radical right were indicted and charged last week with plotting to violently overthrow the government of the United States. One of those leaders is 62-year-old Robert Miles of Livingston County, Michigan. In tonight's Target 7 report on Robert Miles, Channel 7 investigative reporter Vince Wayne explains what led to the grand jury indictment of Miles and the others.
He is either the number one or number two person in the American hate movement. I would argue that he's probably the number one person.
That assessment of Robert Miles by Richard Lobenthal of the Detroit Jewish Anti-Defamation League is apparently shared by a federal grand jury in Fort Smith, Arkansas. The grand jury investigation was based on 2 incidents that provided important evidence. One was a standoff between the FBI and a white separatist group known as the Covenant, the Sword, and the Arm of the Lord. That occurred in the Ozark Mountains of northern Arkansas in April 1985. Agents arrested James Ellison, the CSA leader, who allegedly had close ties to Robert Miles and the other top leaders of the radical right. Ellison is expected to testify for the government at the upcoming trial. Asa Hutchinson was the U.S. attorney in the Western District of Arkansas during the time of the CSA siege.
As we searched the CSA compound after we had the siege and executed a search warrant, we found a security file in which they had the names and addresses and wives' names in some instances of people that they were targeting, that they were doing surveillance on.
The targets included Arkansas federal judge H. Franklin Waters and FBI agent Jack Knox. A $3.6 million armored car robbery in Ukiah, California also provided important clues. Federal agents traced the money and found that it led them to some of the top leaders of the white separatist movement. Near the end of the Fort Smith grand jury investigation, Robert Miles was offered a deal. The essence of it was he would get lighter treatment if he agreed to testify against the other leaders of the radical right. It was an offer Robert Miles refused. As a result, Miles was arrested last Friday and held without bond as a threat to the community and the nation at large. Through his tone of voice and the words he chooses carefully for public consumption, Robert Miles makes it clear he views himself as a martyr for the cause of white separatism, a cause his critics and the federal government view as a thin disguise for neo-Nazism.
This isn't going to end with us. We're the first going to the new stakes of the Neo-Inquisition. And I'm not particularly honored by it. It's like the fellow being ridden out of town on a rail with tar and feathers on him. He says, it wasn't for the honor, I'd just as soon walk. And that's about the way I feel. I know that any prison term I receive is a death sentence now. I'm too old to come back.
It is impossible, of course, to predict what will happen to Robert Miles in the Fort Smith case. But regardless of the outcome, one thing is certain. Robert Miles won't be quiet. From Fort Smith, Arkansas, Vince Wade, Channel 7 Action News reporting.
Today, May 1st, is a national holiday in many parts of the world, and behind the Iron Curtain, it is the one day set aside to show off military muscle. The biggest show of force was in the Soviet Union, where tanks and soldiers marched proudly in Red Square. Soviet leader Gorbachev led the thousands of parade watchers on this, the Soviets' most important holiday. In Allen Park tonight, about 1,500 people turned out for what was billed as an anti-May Day rally. Organizers hoped the local display would put people on guard about the dangers of Marxism and socialism. The rally was also held to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the U.S. Constitution.
Otherwise, the first weekend of the new month, May, leaves much to be desired. May leave us wishing it was still April. Jerry steps in with a computerized forecast when The Update continues in just a moment.